apps today.
Do you like
Welcome back, guys, to another episode of the Expansion Pack, where we talk about video games, comics, and more. I'm Andy.
And I'm Reagan. Let's get to the news.
In our first story, you remember last week as we discussed about the Overwatch League, well, the league is experiencing some drama, as it seems. One of the pro players, Felix Langle, aka XQC, has been suspended for playing games. XQC played for the Dallas Fuel, and it seems the reason for the suspension was his use of homophobic slurs towards another player who is openly gay. So to make matters worse, you gotta do that. XQC has suspended for 4 games and fined $2,000. That's just the league itself suspension, and his team, Dallas Fuel, has decided to suspend him from the rest of Stage 1 matches. With the suspension, he won't be back until February 10th. But what do you guys think? Was the suspension a good thing? Was it not strict enough? Do you like seeing companies getting strict on their esports players? Like, what?
I think it was good. Maybe they could have been a little bit stricter.
Maybe.
Honestly.
They're examples, like you have to make an example out of them.
Japan has its eyes on the prize and on the gold as it sets its sights on video games being realized as an Olympic sport by 2024. This goal comes off of video game tournaments being outlawed in Japan as a form of gambling. Lawmakers have worked around this ruling to allow esports to remain in their country, but lawmaker Takeo Kawamura hopes that video game players may soon be able to make a living in Japan. He hopes if professional gaming becomes an Olympic sport, the Japanese people will respect it as a profession. The Olympic Committee has shared that they are not opposed to video games in the Olympics, but that they don't want to promote violence that some of the games exhibit while bringing the world together for peace.
I mean, that makes sense, but you also have games like FIFA, and
right?
So that you can bring that to the Olympics, and I hope it does.
Let's
really
go.
do. So this may not be gaming news per se, but this kind of relates, and I like it. I think it's pretty cool. Nike has just announced the release of an official PlayStation-themed sneaker. The shoes are black with some bright neon colors around it and splattered on the base of the shoe. The tongue of the shoe will rock the PlayStation logo. However, these shoes may not make you a better person at gaming, but they can sure make you cool while you're doing it. The shoes are set to be released on February 10th, and no word so far on how much the price will be for these. I can only imagine they will be expensive.
So many monies.
So much monies. No cheat code for it either. No Rosebud.
Compulsion's We Happy Few has made fans sad once again, as their release date has been set back another couple of months from April to sometime this summer. The game, that is set in a dystopian 1960s England, originally started as a campaign on Kickstarter.
Awesome.
Following the successful campaign, a small playthrough was released through Steam and Xbox One. The setback comes for a good reason, as the team has reevaluated the first several hours of gameplay and decided to reconfigure the whole story arc. While the title will come out later, it should be much better for it.
I think it's awesome that a company is going to be like, no, our game wants to be like this. Let's go and wait a couple. Shows good on them, honestly. Activision CEO Eric Hirshberg, has been decided to step down from CEO this upcoming March. Hirshberg has been a part of the company for the past 8 years now, and according to the statements given on January 18th, there seems to be no real reason for his departure. A lot of fans of the Call of Duty series may know Hirshberg better than most because he was active in pushing the game series as an esports. Good on him. He even launched the first 1 million championship for the game in 2011 and created the league in 2015. Now, whatever your opinions on the company or people involved, we here hope that Eric is up to something great in his next adventure. So here's to his future, and let's see who will now fill in his shoes. Those are pretty big shoes.
Maybe, the PlayStation shoes?
They could.
Yeah.
Could do it.
Earlier this month, Kickstarter released its numbers for 2017, revealing that crowdfunding for games increased a whopping 30% from 2016 to 2017. If you're thinking that means it went toward video games, you'd be wrong. Most of the increase went towards tabletop games.
Which is awesome.
Yeah. In 2016, tabletop games received $101.2 million.
Wow.
And 2017, they received $137.7 million, while video game startups stayed stagnant at around $17.7 million.
That's crazy in differences.
This may be concerning to developers, but it may just be because the amount of work that goes into tabletop games after the startup is usually all production and distribution, while video games still need to go through development.
That's true.
Right? So either way, tabletop is raking in the cash.
Getting all that dough, getting all those dice. In our last show, so we were filming, Nintendo decided to sneak cardboard into the mix of gaming. They just threw that out there while we were filming. Yeah, you heard me right, I said cardboard. Nintendo announced last week their new creation for the Switch is Nintendo Labo, a do-it-yourself interactive experience. You can build different creations from these kits you purchase and use it for your Switch. Well, what can you create? You can build pianos, fishing rods, motorbikes, backpacks, and more. Nintendo is calling these pieces of work that I will most certainly mess up on building Toy-Cons. You can use these creations within the game itself and will only cost you $69.99 for the variety kit or $79.99 for the robot kit. Extra customizations will be around $9.99. If this sounds fun to you, you'll be able to purchase Labo on April 20th of this year.
Sounds like an IKEA nightmare to me.
I would agree with you. I'm gonna probably mess up building these, but I think it's gonna be good for kids and families. Parents might get annoyed from building it, but we'll see what happens.
Yep. That's it for the news today. We'll be back in a minute with Matt's news on comic books.
Today, when you have multiple devices at your fingertips, wouldn't it be great if you could run the software you need on all of them? Well, now you can. UCF Apps is a new and innovative way for you to access the applications that you need to get your coursework done from any PC, Mac, tablet, or smartphone. For more information or to give your input on UCF Apps, go to apps.ucf.edu. What are you waiting for? Start using UCF Apps today.
Do you like sports? Do you like reading about sports? Then we got a sports blog just for you. Stay on my peripherals. That's not far. Hitting the field.
The first student-run sports blog.
For sports fans.
By sports fans.
See, it's all about the product shot.
Where do you want me to stand?
Don't talk though. I want them to see the whole.
Hitting the field. We cover football. We cover basketball. And so much more.
He's out! By sports reporters. And Meech.
What up? Watch the show and read the sports blog. Hitting the
Field!
Today, when you have multiple devices at your fingertips, wouldn't it be great if you could run the software you need on all of them? Well, now you can. UCF Apps is a new and innovative way for you to access the applications that you need to get your coursework done from any PC, Mac, tablet, or smartphone. For more information or to give your input on UCF Apps, go to apps.ucf.edu. What are you waiting for? Start using UCF Apps today.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Expansion Pack's Comic News. I'm Matthew Salvaria. Let's get started. Our first story here today is based on, well, underwear, and them making their grand return. That's right, Man of Steel fans. Our favorite last son of Krypton will be making, his mighty underwear will be making their grand return. At the beginning of DC's 2011 New 52 relaunch, Superman lost his iconic red trunks to the dismay of many hardcore fans, myself included. This was part of DC's way of trying to modernize their brand and be more grounded and realistic. But with last year's DC Legacy relaunch, DC has finally been embracing its roots, and that is expressed no better than here with the Man of Steel getting back his mighty red trunks. This return will debut in Action Comics issue number 1000, coming soon. Now switching off to Marvel, we have the announcement that longtime famed Spider-Man writer Dan Slott will be leaving the character after 10 years of creating some of the best wall-crawler stories I've personally ever read. Luckily, there's no reason to worry because he's not going far, as now Dan Slott will be taking his writing talents to our favorite billionaire playboy philanthropist, Mr. Tony Stark. Dan Slott will be starting his Iron Man run shortly after his final Spider-Man issue number 801 coming this June. And now to our new recommendation segment. With the release of the new Batman animated film from Warner Brothers Animation, it will be best for my first recommendation to be on the graphic novel that film is based on, Batman: Gotham by Gaslight. The book is one of DC's many Elseworlds stories, which feature known characters in settings or stories that they would never otherwise be in within their mainline comics. This Elseworlds story features our Caped Crusader in a late Victorian steampunk version of Gotham. The comic has Batman battling with Jack the Ripper, who this time has reappeared in Gotham after a decade past his murderous rampage in London. The comic has just this amazing minimalistic artwork done by Mike Malonga, best known for his Hellboy work. This comic truly does show why Batman is the world's greatest detective, in my opinion, as he searches for clues of who is the Ripper. I love this comic's take on the Dark Knight, and I think you will too. I greatly recommend reading this title before watching the film, which you can download right now or get on Blu-ray February 6th. And now to our pull list for today. We have Action Comics issue number 996, Batgirl number 19, Flash number 39, Hal Jordan and the Green Lantern Corps number 37, Wonder Woman number 39, Amazing Spider-Man number 794, Black Panther number 169, X-Men Blue number 20, and Marvel 2-in-1 number 2. That's all for the comic news today. We'll be back with more of the expansion pack right after this. Just stick around.
Today, when you have multiple devices at your fingertips, wouldn't it be great if you could run the software you need on all of them? Well, now you can. UCF Apps is a new and innovative way for you to access the applications that you need to get your coursework done from any PC, Mac, tablet, or smartphone. For more information or to give your input on UCF Apps, go to apps.ucf.edu. What are you waiting for? Start using UCF Apps today.
Do you like sports? Do you like reading about sports? Then we got a sports blog just for you. Stay on my peripherals. That's not far. Hitting the field.
The first student-run sports blog.
For sports fans.
By sports fans.
See, it's all about the product shot.
Where do you want me to stand?
Don't talk though. I want them to see the hole.
Hitting the field. We cover football. We cover basketball. And so much more. He's out.
By sports reporters. And Meech.
What up? Watch the show and read the sports blog. Hitting the
Field.
Today, when you have multiple devices at your fingertips, wouldn't it be great if you could run the software you need on all of them? Well, now you can. UCF Apps is a new and innovative way for you to access the applications that you need to get your coursework done from any PC, Mac, tablet, or smartphone. For more information or to give your input on UCF Apps, go to apps.ucf.edu. What are you waiting for? Start using UCF Apps today.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Expansion Pack, and today we're going to be talking about card games making their way into video games. I'm here with my lovely co-host Andy and my beautiful panel. If you guys want to go ahead and introduce yourselves.
I am Justin.
I'm Matthew, comic book writer here.
Perfect.
Comic
Okay,
guru.
so card games as video games have become a huge thing in recent times,
Yes.
particularly Hearthstone, which just finished a huge tournament. I know that you love to play card games that are video games. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the ones that you really like?
Sure. Well, as far as card games go, I definitely, when I was younger, I would play the non-digital card games, the old school
Right.
ones.
Old school,
So
of course.
Pokemon,
That was
pretty
me.
common one.
Love Pokemon. Yu-Gi-Oh!
Yeah, Yu-Gi-Oh, all the classic card
Magic.
games. Magic.
Magic.
Magic is kind of like, the one that really got card games, I say one like serious and competitive almost.
Yeah.
And Hearthstone kind of was like I guess a computer evolution of that in a way. I wouldn't say Hearthstone's a more complex or intricate game than Magic, but I mean, it's a super successful, huge game, and it's super fun to play. I've been playing it since it came out.
Right.
That's awesome.
It's super fun. You create your own decks, and then you just go in. It's a mana-based game, so it's all based on point values and all stuff like that. But there was a huge tournament that just happened, just finished recently this month. And actually, one of the semifinalists, he got second place, was from the USA. So,
Awesome.
yay,
Yay,
go
USA.
us.
Let's go.
So, yeah, but a Taiwanese player ended up winning.
Taiwanese,
So he took
oh.
home $250,000 for winning this huge tournament.
That's a
So,
house.
yeah, a nice house.
A very nice
Or a lot of cards.
Or
lot
a
of
lot of
cards.
cards.
And with how much some of those cards cost, yeah,
Pay to win, man.
pay to win.
I actually have friends who, with Pokemon, they will go online and specifically buy like whoever won tournaments, like their cards,
Wow.
so that they win in like local tournaments. I'm like, you scummy people! I see you. You don't even get to enjoy opening a fresh pack and being like, wow.
These are the ones that I got. That's crazy.
Card packs, the original loot box.
Yeah.
It's
Oh,
kind of
right.
true, honestly.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of sad, to be honest. Cause oh god, I remember at one point I did work in a card shop. I didn't do much there, but I would see people like come in because we would like give releases of what cards were coming in packs soon, and people would be like, oh, that's gonna be OP. That's going to break the game. People would line up or something and like just buy an ungodly amount of these, just trying to get like that one card that would break the game. While people that spent so much money building up their decks to be perfect, the second a new pack comes out, oh, your deck is garbage.
It happens a lot in Magic.
Yeah.
It's a lot in Magic.
Yeah.
Happens every time Hearthstone releases an expansion, you kind of have to go
Right.
through that as well.
Right. They do have like the original sets, and then they switch out expansions every once in a while. So
And I know in Hearthstone they're getting rid of some sets, I believe.
right, they do that every year.
Yeah. Every year they cycle out like some of the older expansions. Generally, it's like I think like 2 or 3 or something like
Yeah,
that.
something around there.
Yeah, and that kind of gives them room to print new cards, obviously.
Yep.
But within that, they do, like you said, keep that first set that they came out with when the game was, new and fresh.
Right, just to keep it real. Keep it OG.
Keep it like how it was originally
Right.
formed. Yeah.
Well-
I know you said you had there was a game that you are wanting
Yes.
to like boast about.
Okay, so I discovered this new game recently. It's on Steam Early Access right now.
Okay.
It's still in its early stages. Like, it's not a very polished game from like an art standpoint, but as far as the gameplay goes, it is super, super fun. This game, it's called Slay the Spire. It's a single-player card game, and I'd have to say the kind of the closest thing that it would be, I guess compared to, would be the recent Hearthstone expansion, the Kobolds and Catacombs, and within that, the single player where you essentially create a deck and you gather cards and you fight bosses, and it's a player versus environment or enemy experience. The thing is, you have to play it. It's super fun. It's super
Sounds
addicting.
fun.
I think I put in like a whole day into that game within the first 3 days of buying it.
That's awesome.
Oh
Yes.
no. That sounds like a time destroyer.
It is. Well, thankfully,
Addictive.
because it's in early access, there's only so much content.
Okay.
But I see like they could add so much more to this game. They have like essentially different classes like in Hearthstone that have different cards and kind of different themes to them. And they plan on releasing more of those in the future. And I'm assuming more PvE content in the future as well. So I would definitely recommend that game if you're a fan of card games and you kind of been enjoying the PvE experience that some of these other card games like I think Gwent is coming out with a single player campaign, and the Elder Scrolls has a really nice one as well, and Hearthstone's really been pushing that a lot recently as well. So if you're a fan of that, I definitely would recommend checking out Slay the Spire.
It sounds really cool. I always love card games that have classes because it always brings me back to my Pathfinder roots and my World of Warcraft roots, and I'm just like, oh, childhood, you know? But bringing back to childhood and the nostalgia, I always remember playing like, even going back to playing just Sudoku, I just love card games, all right?
Okay, so I play Sudoku on my phone still. Like,
who doesn't?
I like it's
I don't.
it's a
What?
Nope.
it's an
Oh, but you
active.
have Slay the Spire instead.
That's right. I'm currently addicted.
Right.
Well, I keep playing it. It kind of helps with my memory and keeping my brain functioning. That's kind of why I do it. I don't want dementia when I'm 45. You know?
I think that shouldn't be a big problem for our generation. We play a lot of games.
keep our brains working.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of the games that we do play, like Sudoku, even probably Slay the Spire and I know Hearthstone, are a lot of strategy games and a lot of thinking into it. So I think it's really good to be able to have those kinds of games instead of just the mind-numbing all of the time kinds of games, you know?
I enjoy how these games are becoming more digital, and I enjoy how Hearthstone kind of, I think Blizzard kind of does this in general. Well, they have a game and it just breaks the mold for people wanting to like kind of copy them, even though you will say like, Overwatch is a copy of TF2, and I'll give it that.
Well,
that's
to be fair, I feel like Blizzard, they definitely take a lot of inspiration from other games and other universes. Like, I remember StarCraft was originally going to be a Warhammer clone, essentially.
Oh, yeah.
And they couldn't get the rights for it. So Blizzard was like, you know what, we're going to make our own universe, and it's going to be, you know, we're going to have a little similarities, but it kind of really grew into its own thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, just, and also, like, going back to the card game stuff you're mentioning, like, I want to ask, how, like, does it, like, work, like, with, like, when new stuff comes out more? Like how much do you have to change your decks and change up your style?
Okay, so
like,
I should have
change
probably
your
explained the
style
game a
more.
little bit more in depth. It is a single-player card game, but it's kind of mixed with roguelike elements. So basically, every time you play the game, you're starting off with a blank slate, essentially. You have a few basic cards. At the beginning of the game, you kind of get an option. You can take some risky plays that replace some of your powers with potentially different ones that could be better or worse than your current one. You can get some extra gold, and you have a map. You'll kind of progress through it. They're like different rooms essentially, and you're essentially climbing up a big spire. And there's so many floors. There's like 100 floors, you know, to this
kind of
massive
like,
building.
I've mentioned this last discussion. So like SAO, where they go up the floors and you have to battle the different floors. You know what I'm talking about?
It's a lot like that, honestly. Like
my
you
brain.
every time you go to a new floor, you either fight some enemies, you can meet like a merchant, you can get a randomized scenario where good or bad things can happen. It's got kind of some RPG-like elements in terms of that. And sometimes you can go to like elite rooms, which, you know, more difficult enemies, but they'll drop some good items or better cards for you to get. And basically the map is divided into 3 sections currently, and each section has a big boss at the end, which will give you extremely good loot. But you only have 1 life, so if you die, you're sent all the way back down to the bottom. All of your cards are gone. All of your progress is essentially erased, and you have to start from the beginning.
Oh, that's gonna piss me off.
That sounds like an NES game. Like that sounds like an old NES.
The difficulty level could be compared to an original NES game. That being said, the gameplay is so fun and satisfying that you're totally okay. It's worth it. You're ready to just get back in there and start climbing.
So what you're saying is there is no real end, because no matter how far you get, unless you beat the whole thing, you're not done.
Correct. You can save at any point within the game and come back to it whenever you want, but
once you die.
Yeah, once you die, but the decisions that you make within the game are pretty fatal, I guess you could say.
Okay.
Cool.
And there's not a lot of ways to regenerate health in the game as well, so that's a resource you really have to be managing and taking care of.
Extra
that
point,
being
extra
said,
point, extra point on
a lot of card games, they have a lot of offensive abilities and not as many defensive abilities. Armor is much more of a used mechanic in Slay the Spire, you could say.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, so I know I talked about Hearthstone kind of breaking the mold on card games. Basically, I wanted to talk about this because it's weird to see how in your news segment where you talked about with Kickstarter and tabletop games getting more money than video games. Like, there is a market for this, and if it's an easy way for them to create it instead of having to physically produce stuff, like people are gonna fall into it. And I believe, like, I've been to tournaments. I went to DreamHack Austin the first year that they had it, and I watched the Hearthstone tournament, and it was nuts. Like, I kind of knew what was happening, but it was crazy to see how intense people get.
Oh yeah.
And it's just like click, click, something's happening. But then you would have like everyone like, oh my god, like this. I actually watched Team Liquid play.
Yes.
With their Hearthstone team with it. It was really cool. And
it gets intense.
It gets really intense, and Hearthstone really has broke the mold for these types of games, and more companies doing it. I know Hi-Rez, who does Smite, they have Smite Tactics, where they took like Smite characters and their gods and made it into a card-based game, where it's a physical form. Even South Park has a card-based game. I have it on my phone. Like, these things are just getting bigger and bigger.
There's a huge market for it, especially like you said, because tabletop gaming is getting a lot of the funding. Video games need to kind of keep up with that and say, okay, well, why aren't we getting the funding? A lot of it does have to do with development costs and the risk involved. But if they go towards making card-based games or tabletop-esque games in video game form, maybe that'll help out too.
Well, like you're saying about like how you see in tournaments with the Hearthstone, like, you know, people do one click and everyone's like, oh, like that's how it is. Like if you go to, let's say, just a cool stuff like games place, they're playing like Yu-Gi-Oh or something.
You just activated my trap card.
Or just like, but not even like just activate trap card, because you'll see them and like the way they set up these decks is insane. It's just like, oh yeah, I activate one spell card, oh draw, use, draw, use, and just keep going through their entire deck. And like to
just destroy people.
Yeah, they will wreck you within a minute. And so they'll have decks like that. And I noticed also, like, at some like cool stuff locations, they're adding like, you know, desktops, or they're telling you that they'll have like Hearthstone style tournaments where they'll bring in your laptops to be able to like play that. So they'll
in the tabletop area playing digital tabletop.
Is that what they're called? Where the Hearthstone players will get together and play at like a local event?
Yeah.
The lines are melding, all right?
I like it.
So, yeah, that's the thing I noticed at like cool stuff locations. They'll do like Hearthstone tournaments, like, you know, like LAN party kind of things, but with Hearthstone.
Do you know the YouTuber Boogie? I hope everyone knows who Boogie is. I love Boogie. Boogie2298, I think that's his numbers. Well, he was started as a tabletop person, and he's like the famous like freak out a video. Have you ever seen like a really big dude like freak out and flip a table from losing at like a Magic game? Like
he did that?
Yeah, that's him. That's Francis freaking out, and that's how he kind of became known. And he has a YouTube channel, and he's really, shout out to Boogie. He's a very kind soul, like a very kind soul, and
kind enough to flip a table.
He has a persona called Francis.
When you're in the heat of the moment in a card game.
People have been murdered because of a Magic game. I learned that in my journalism class.
That was a thing.
I was like, what?
Oh, man.
It gets real, all right?
I'm going to stick to my digital card games. I don't want to get...
I don't want to see people face to face, like, I hide behind my keyboard, go away.
Yeah.
Just
God, there's just an economy to like all of it. Like with just the physical card games, I've noticed it's like people will be like trying to predict, hey, this card that's OP right now, this is going to get banned in a month. So I need to sell this now.
Yeah. And it's also like, I think when it comes to these card games going digitally, it's cheaper. I don't have to buy a pack all the time. I mean, you can buy packs, but like you're given free stuff within the games, and the game, like Hearthstone itself, is a free game. Like I have it downloaded on my laptop. Like I can go play it right now if I want to. Am I good at it? No, but it's still fun.
Yeah, the people that play though, play for 10 hours a day religiously. That is their life. They play Hearthstone. That's what they do. Like the person that won this tournament, Tom60229, said, you know, for the last year, all I've been doing is Hearthstone. I've been preparing for tournaments, doing tournaments, thinking about tournaments, doing tournaments, playing Hearthstone. and
It's
he said
crazy.
he's done for a little bit. He's taking a break.
I think that's kind of like how Olympians are. If we're gonna talk about like sports, like Michael Phelps, he's like for the year before the Olympics, it's like constantly doing it, and then
This should be an esports and go. Go to the Olympics.
it could. Yeah, I would 100% support it. I want to
But
see it.
That's all the time that we have for today, so we'll see you next week on The Expansion Pack.
NFC, I'll give them the NFC. 3-0, the defending champions. They're still boasting a high-powered offense. Quinn's got them playing really good defense still.